What's up, everyone? Tag a friend and let them know we're about to get into it.
Welcome to the SpeakHer Podcast with your host, Camille Essick, the podcast where creators and innovators connect. Let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm your co-host Jonathan. Camille will be here shortly. Before we begin, be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe.
Keep the SpeakHer Podcast ad-free. Scan the QR code and buy me a coffee. Your support keeps us ad-free as we continue to bring you conversations impacting the community and the culture.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Please share this and tag a friend who needs to hear this.
Let's welcome tonight's panelists.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Camille Essick. I'm host of the SpeakHer Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and critics connect. What I need you to do right now is hit that notification bell and subscribe. I'm streaming across various platforms such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And we also have music available on Tidal. I'm super excited about our guest tonight. She is not a stranger to the show, and she's, like big sis. And so we're super excited to have, call her her. She is her. She is that one. The one and only, the amazing Dr. Matisa Wilbon. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Matisa. We are so excited and so glad to have you here.
I've been looking forward to this. Listen, what about the hand claps? I love it.
I love God. What's wrong with you?
Don't start, Camille.
Cut up just a little bit.
I'm here for all of it.
Yes.
Glad to be here, though. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So much has changed since you've been here, and we just want to get into things. And one of the things I admire about you is like whatever season I've known you almost 4 years now, and it seems like longer than that. But just in the ways of life, you've maintained poise and grace and dignity about everything that you've experienced. And so in that, how are you learning to pivot and find purpose with clarity, even when life has shifted unexpectedly?
Oh, that's a big question. So again, thanks for having me. Actually, you prefaced this, or referenced this, but I think last time I was on with my husband. I was on with Lawrence, and I'm pretty sure that's right. Isn't that right? Yeah. So for those who may not know, Lawrence, my husband, passed away almost a year and a half ago. And so the question actually is a really good one because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially a little over a year into it. If I take the long route around, Camille, last year I was really on autopilot and God's grace. I mean, literally God's grace and whatever was in me, was autopilot. Now that it's over a year into it, I'm able to step back a little bit. And I think for me, this is the thing. God grounds me. He's my foundation. Before Lawrence and I married, God was my everything. While we were married, he was my everything. So even though when Lawrence passed away, it literally changed everything in my life. And hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that. I had to come to a point where I made the choice that I was going to live even after Lawrence passed away. And that if I wanted to live, I would have to make choices without Lawrence here, right? That I've been part of a couple for 25 years, but now I have to be able to stand on my own. And once I acknowledged that, came to that conclusion, made that choice, I started making decisions, I think, that reflected that, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yep.
In that space, because we're both human and divine, and I don't want to turn this into a churchy thing, but that's just a part of who you and I are, and if we have
Yep.
that, we're gonna do that without apology. So for those watching, that's what we do, that's who we are. But, how do you do that and then you go through the honesty with God? Because I had an experience, during one of my times of prayer with God a few months ago,
Mhm.
and I'm young, but I'm old school, and a lot of times I'm praying, I'll walk the floors like an old woman.
Mhm.
And I got sometimes you'll get to a spot and you kinda stand there in prayer, and I was standing there and God asked me, he was like, "You're mad at me, aren't you?" And I could feel myself go, and he was like, "You can tell me, like, I can handle your honesty." He was like, "You're mad at me because of what I allowed."
Mhm.
And I was very hesitant, and he was like, "I'm not af" pretty much he was like, "I'm not afraid of your humanity, tell me the truth." And that's when I felt myself uttering a yes. And it was like he was saying, "That's what I was waiting on." And when I
Mhm.
was able to be honest with him about that quiet resentment on things God allowed within his will, something broke, and then my prayer shifted in that moment, and it was like sometimes we feel that, "Oh, if I'm not honest and transparent with God in this prayer time, we raised with the fear of God, he's gonna strike me down, take my life, all this,
Right. Right, right,
but
right.
he really was waiting on that transparent moment
Mhm.
do some other things because healing comes in waves. And I had this conversation with someone, either yesterday or today, it might have been today, and was saying how, in the scriptures, Jesus healed people in different ways. Some people, he spat on the ground, put the mud on their eyes. Some of them,
Mhm.
he spoke the word, and then some of them, they were healed as they went. And I
Mhm.
came to the realization I'm one of those that is healing on the go. Like, I still need you to do XYZ, but
Yep.
I healed as I went. So in
Yep.
that, to set up this next talking point or question for you, how
Mhm.
did you manage your transparent with God? How are you managing those transparent moments with God for those other nuances within your heart to take place?
Yeah, the transparency is really key to healing, right? I can be very honest to say, Camille, and I don't know where this comes from other than just a place in God. I never felt mad. I never felt resentful, although I know those are honest human emotions. But for me, it is a sadness. It is a deep void that I cannot even articulate. Um, a loneliness that's hard to articulate because again, we were married for 25 years. So from 22 until, he passed away in December, we were connected at the hip. Um, happily married, not perfectly married, but certainly happily married. And so even though you and I didn't have the exact same emotions, I still had to be just as transparent and still have to. Let me just be honest. People see me and I'm one too, Camille, who heals as I go. When I minister, God ministers to me. He showed me that early on. I still walk in my purpose and there is a grace for that. But there are some moments, especially at night, because for me, the way I dealt with my grief was busyness. The more busy the busier that I was, the less I have to think about it. But I did have to come to a point, particularly at night, where I had to come to God and say, I don't even know what this emotion is, but if you don't do something,
Mhm.
I'm not going to make it. Right. And the more I was able to do that, whatever that emotion was in the moment, loneliness, sadness, frustration, just not understanding. Right. Because for those who don't know, Lawrence, even though there had been some sickness, Lawrence passed away totally out of the blue, suddenly. So it's not just the actual passing and the aftermath of that, it's the way it happened was traumatic. So those are some of the things that I've had to go to God about, my kids and sort of all the other things that go with it. But the short answer to your question is that transparency is key. I in fact believe that when we can be transparent and vulnerable with God, that is the thing that activates our healing a lot of times.
That's really good.
Yeah.
In that, I think something, the least one I've noticed on a lot of spaces, you don't hear a lot about ministry and mental health. And I think because there's a facade that comes with I'm a PK, third generation PK, so and there's always you have to put on this face and present, but behind the scenes, you minister and pour out, but having people around you that can catch you, or sometimes in those moments, in those waves, you feel like you're drowning. And so how do you manage the mental health space and have to minister, but then behind the closed door, sometimes it feels like you may be fighting for your life?
Woo! Okay, Camille, we're gonna go there. We just gonna go there, okay? I'm here to play tonight. Um, Let me just say, I think that is such an important topic. And for anybody who's watching this, I need you to share it. I need you to like it, subscribe to the Speak Her podcast, because these are such important topics. Let me be very honest. When Lawrence passed away, it was traumatic for everybody in their household, including me. So much so that it impacted my mental health. Nobody knew it. And actually, this is what do they call them when you're disclosing it for the first time on a show? This is my
The
disclosure.
exclusive.
This is an exclusive.
Exclusive.
Yes, you were
Well,
getting
thank
an
you for
exclusive
trusting me
tonight.
with your exclusive story.
Absolutely,
White glove,
absolutely.
white glove, white glove.
Yeah, this is an exclusive. Right after Lawrence passed away, um, I had so much anxiety because of the way he passed away, that I was experiencing physical things, whether they were real or not, at least perceived. So I remember I had a panic attack and I had to go to the ER. And like I was in tears because I was feeling like I was dying, because I saw my husband go from, earth to glory in a second. And the doctors who were there were so kind, and they were like, "Ma'am, it's okay. It's because of the trauma." So I went to my primary care physician, and I was letting her know what was going on. And full disclosure, I was on anti-anxiety medicine. I am not ashamed of that. I am very transparent about it, because we are body and spirit, right? And so I fully have the Holy Ghost. I do speak in tongues as the Spirit of God gives utterance. God uses me greatly. But there was something psychosomatic about the way that I was processing Lawrence's passing. And I felt on edge all the time. Like, my kids are going to, something's going to happen to them, something's going to happen to me. And my doctor, she talked about the fact that sometimes that shows up in your body. And so when she first asked me, of course the spirit kicked in, or that, not even the spirit, pride. Wasn't the spirit, it was pride. Oh no, I don't need that. And then I'm calling her, or I think I was messaging her like, "Oh God, I think I'm dying. My blood pressure is so high," right? Because I've never had blood pressure issues. I've never had any sickness, but my blood pressure was through the roof. I was feeling all of these symptoms, and I'm inboxing her and all of that. Um, and finally, when I went back to her, I was like, "I need this," and it helped. And so I've told people privately to free them to get the help that they need. But I want to say this publicly: have faith, as I'm a woman of faith. And if that's not your choice in these moments, don't worry about it. But consider the possibility that there are some helps out there if this is something that you're struggling with.
I think that's really good, and I appreciate your transparency. Growing up in church, you and I, this area has always been taboo, or those that chose alternatives were shamed.
Mhm.
And, um, as a result, we shouted over a lot of things, or we, diminished one's faith because they chose to step out of the realm of faith, air quote, for the additional assistance. And something I'll continue to say, and this is just me, I feel that mental health professionals is another form of ministry.
Mhm.
Um, you have mind, body, and soul. And we have, our ministers, our leaders, our preachers, bishops, elders. Their area is the soul. A lot of your doctors and physicians, the body. But then you have those out of that subgroup, their ministry is the mind.
That's
And it
right.
can all work together in addition to the word, in addition to the, prayers and everything. And it goes hand in hand. And I think in this space, we are becoming more open regarding this realm of health. And when you
Yes.
begin to really look at the scriptures, mental health, that's in the scriptures. When you look
Mhm.
at the man that was in the tombs, he was
That's
having a
right.
mental health, situation.
Crisis. That's right.
Right, and the crisis, yes, and so I just feel that we need to continue to dispel the taboo, particularly those within the realm of ministry, that
Mhm.
yes, you can minister, lay people out, all that, and still be in a basement mentally or have not saying you, but some people have had ideations or just say, "Well, I need to step back from the pulpit right now and
Mhm.
take these sabbaticals," and have some realizations about how we need to have this conversation. And yes, we have our departments for singles and marrieds and young people, but there also needs to be room for licensed, certified, approved mental health professionals within ministry as well, so you can
That's right.
couple that care and recovery, and even within, aftercare for bereavement, having those things in line to assist to guide people through this new chapter and phase of life.
No, that's so good, and I wanna say this, I know we are spiritual beings living, an earthly experience or bodily experience, however you wanna say it, and I do believe in faith, I do believe in healing, I do believe that instant God can do things instantly, um, but I am in a season where I am being led of God to help me with what I need in the moment. You don't have to be on anti-anxiety meds forever if there's someone who's depressed, because sometimes, anxiety is the cover of depression, right? Um, and I want to make sure that people hear me clearly. I'm in a season of I don't care. I know I'm saved. I know I got the Holy Ghost. I know God uses me greatly. But if you're not home with me at night when it's dark and I am, on edge and just not just on edge, but just the visual of my husband's passing going over and over and over in my mind. Of course I prayed, and God showed up. But when I was able to, in the moment, balance something, right? Because we don't talk enough about how these things impact us neurologically. So it's not, biologically, neurologically. It's not just the emotional parts of it. Like trauma rewires your brain. And I'm not trying to get too deep into it, but I really want to free somebody who feels like maybe I need, because I talked to somebody recently who had a traumatic experience. She had a loved one pass away, and she was like, "Listen, what have you done?" And I shared this, and later she was like, "Thank you," because people they don't want this to be an option, and it's something that has been super helpful for me. Um, and, I just, again, if it's not for you, that's cool. But if it's a tool, not something you have to do forever, but if it's a tool to help you get through a really, really tough loss like we experienced, then why not use it? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And community matters. Having people around you that have your best interests at heart, that can pick
Yes.
you up in the spirit, so to say, and stand the watch on your behalf, in those moments where usually you may have been the one to kind of stand on guard spiritually, but can stand and cover you in those spaces. That really matters too, and can do so without ulterior motive
Mm,
or well, let me, try to, and it's just out of a pure space. And so I think in addition to the mental health component in ministry, having
mhm.
that entrusted community is also very important.
Yes. So I love it. I love it. Love it. Prayer, got the meds if I need them. And I do have a community. There are people that I can just reach out to and just text and say, "Hey, I don't necessarily need you to say anything. I just want to vent." Or, I have a couple of people that I can call on. And I don't even have to say a lot, but God has positioned them and graced them to just be my encouragement. I have some people, you're one of those, Camille, like, people who just don't know. Actually, Kadian is one of them. She's right on here.
That's my
Megan.
Thor.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. Um, God has just placed people in my life who are just kind. Let me give you that. Let me say this. I remember once Lawrence passed away, this was, I don't know, some months into it. And, I'm dealing with estate stuff, right? Because we got the house, we got all this kind of stuff that we're dealing with. And I was just having a really difficult time. And sometimes when you are the strong person, it's hard. Who are you transparent with? Where can you be transparent, right? I'm not going to get on Facebook and say a bunch of stuff. But I was just going through the day doing what I needed to do. And I went to the estate area in probate. And it was just this kind woman who was helping me with my paperwork. And I don't know if she could tell that I was about to kind of break down, but she was just walking me through it in such a kind way. And I just cried. And I was crying for two reasons. Of course, I was crying because I was grieving, but I was crying because there is something about kindness that invites you to be vulnerable. And I have found that to be true of strangers. God has allowed people to be that way for me. But then he's also created this community, some in the inner circle, some who are in the larger conglomerate of people who will just text me, who will just send me, sometimes you'll just send me $10 and say, go have some coffee. You don't know what that does to me. And it's not the money per se, it's the thought. It's like, oh, I was on your mind, right? And God always does it at the right time. But then there are other people where I might call and just break down with, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to deal with this? My faith community, my pastor, amazing. He's an amazing support. First lady, my first lady, just so many people that I can point to, but it is a larger community for sure.
Absolutely. And then kind of turning the corner just a little bit, finding life again, like your breath, and y'all know, y'all don't know, but I call her Cruz Wilbon. And so she went on a trip, and when you came back, and just to see you laughing and smiling, not that you hadn't been, but it was a different light. And I was
Yeah.
like, and I think I told you at church, I was like, I like Cruz you. And it's just to see you finding your way, through this season. And sometimes I'll look over at church and I'll see you and I'm just like, oh, it's good to see you alive and present and bright and just showing up in a different way. Like you've always shown up, but even in this, because I've never been married, but I don't know. I would probably need a wellness check, because I don't know how I could have, managed that. But to see you pray for people when there's times you probably needed it yourself, or even when you're like, "Imma dance anyway," and that resonates with me, and it's an example that although I haven't gone through that, there's a way you can go through.
Yeah.
You may be going through, but there's a way you can go through, so it's really helped me. It's one of those pieces, those nuggets I grab and say, "Well, if she can go through that, then I need to fix my face through the spaces I'm navigating and go through this." So,
Wow. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I've actually had a number of people reach out to say that. I can't say enough about it being God's grace. Number one, I never want to take any credit, because if it hadn't been for him, I'm telling you, I would have lost my mind. But that's why it's important to have God for real, right? Lawrence and I were married for a long time, but I was not codependent on him. Now that's my guy, that's my love. He's my one, my only, my first, my 25 years of all of that. But because I had a good grip on God, when God called him home, I still had a grip on God. Now, the first few months were so difficult. Like, it was hard to smile. It was hard to do anything. I was on autopilot, as I said, and I was trying to make sure my kids were okay. I was trying to figure out the business because my husband did a lot of a lot of our financial things. And so I was figuring all of that out. And I was really just trying to, I was doing the business of grief, to be honest. I was making sure the household stayed afloat, and I still had to work some. I didn't have to work a lot, thank God, but I had a contract here or there. And then purpose was pulling me. So those things were kind of pushing me, like, girl, you got to get up. You got to pay these bills. You got to do what you got to do. But purpose was pulling me. And I remember when I started ministering, I had two schools of thought, right? Because I want to say Lawrence passed away at the end of December. My first engagement, I want to say, was in March of the next year. So I had one school of thought where they were like, don't get up too soon, because you don't want to start ministering over the grief and not really heal. I get that. Then I had another school of thought where they were like, keep ministering because that's how you're going to heal. And that, I think both of those were kind of true. I didn't take as many engagements, but the ones that I did, they poured into me, right? But this is what I wanted to get to. There was a point, and I did do grief coaching because that's key. So part of my community was grief counseling, grief coaching, and then my faith community, my friends, etc. But I remember in the coaching, I was talking to my coach, and I was saying, I'm not crying as much as I feel like I should be, because we have an idea of how we're going to grieve. I'm like, I should be breaking down and I should be crying. And she said, Matisa, it looks like all of the love and joy that you both sowed over the years, this is the harvest of that. Maybe you're not crying because Lawrence represented so much joy. That was such an aha for me, because I only saw grief as breaking down and depression. And I went through some of that with my mom. But with Lawrence, he did represent so much joy. And I made the decision that I was going to celebrate his life more than I grieved his death. Not that I wasn't going to grieve his passing, but I coupled that grief with memories and things that he did and all the stories. Like, if anybody follows me on social media, that was healing for me. Every story, every laugh, even some of the tears that I shed as I was writing them, that was ministering to me. Yeah.
That is so good. Those that don't know, the last time she was here, he was here, and I don't know if I'll share this with you or openly, but prior to that episode, I kept feeling oppressed to ask the both of you to come on, and y'all like power couple, right? And I'm like, they're busy, they don't have time, and I kept pushing off asking, and then I remember asking him and asking you, and it was like an immediate yes, and I was like, "Okay." And so as time came near, back in my mind, I'm like, "Why did it feel so urgent that I had to do that? Like, was the nudge so persistent?" And in that moment, we're on here, he's cutting up, talking about how you were singing to him in church and praise the Lord.
It's his favorite story.
And it's so funny, and just thinking about how, like, at the M3 Center, because he knew I was Greek, he would come up to me and try to stroll the circle. I was like,
Always.
"You don't
Yes.
get us beat up, stop that," And sometimes I would let him do it, and I just like, but after the fact, after everything, and I was sitting in here, and it was like that revelation, like, that's why. To capture the story, to capture the love journey, but not knowing it would be a time capsule of this amazing love, And then I
Yeah.
thought too, at any time, if she wanted to go back and hear his voice or whatever, she could just tap, and hear. And I was just like, "Okay, God." And so full circle, we don't know why God has us to do things, but in that moment, even when we feel like that door is closed, it can open, and it's not even for you, it's to bless the person on the other side of the threshold, and that's
Mm-hmm.
something your children or whomever, his sister, his twin, anybody, and it's just like, sometimes what we're doing is not even for us, and we have to step outside of get out of our own head and just be
Mhm.
obedient and do it because you don't know how it can play later. So, yeah.
Mhm. And let me just say this. First of all, thank you for that. And I'll be honest, sometimes I'll get in a moment and I'll scroll through everything and I'll just have to hear. And then sometimes I just can't listen, right? But thank you for that reminder specifically about those stories because those are ones that I cherish so much. But I won't, I won't kind of go through all of them, but when I look back, Camille, on that year, the things that God did for us, the whispers, the preparation that I did not know he was making, um, they're remarkable. So, he threw me I was just telling somebody this yesterday. He threw me a surprise party that year. And that wasn't my milestone birthday at all. And I remember thinking, "Why?" Because we didn't do that. Like, we did trips or whatever, but I remember thinking, "Why is he throwing me this party?" And I was so surprised. That was in November, and then the Lord called him home in December.
Yeah.
That's just one example of so many different God setups where
Mhm.
God let us spend time together. Even the way, yes, his passing was sudden, but we got to spend time together that morning. And just, I'm so appreciative, and I don't want people to watch this and say, "Oh, well, she just kind of got over her husband." I ain't over it. Not even by a long shot. Nights are hard still.
Yeah.
But the joy that I have, the memories, and as you suggest, I made a decision, and I kind of alluded to this before. I made a decision some months into my journey that, you know, Lawrence's passing, his death was God's will. If I had if I had my druthers, if I had a say in it, he would still be here. But God called him home. But I had to make the decision that I was not going to die with him. That in fact, I was going to live, and that he passed away in one season, but this season is 2.0 because it's this next chapter, but it's everything that I got with him and learned through him. I'm taking that with me. So he's never gone, and I'm not going to stay in the past. But our future is I'm going to take, the love that we shared into this next chapter. And when I made that conscious decision, the three words that God gave me were joy, health, and wealth. And when God gave me those words and I made that decision, I started feeding into those things. So I did things that I've never done. So I went line dancing, and
Where them
I
fans
started,
at? Click clack.
I'm not good. I'm terrible. Cannot dance at all.
What?
But I could church dance.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I could church dance, but I laugh because I'm like, Lord, you will not let me be secular for no reason, okay?
Now I don't have that testimony. I have rhythm in and out of the pews.
I wish, because I would be out there, but just doing stuff to evoke joy. I run. That's as much for mental health as it is for exercise. That was something that I started doing.
In the words
Really
of John
just
Todd, you look good.
oh, thank you, girl. Thank you, girl. Yeah. But he would have wanted that. And I know sometimes it's hard for people. People hear that and say, "Oh, you made a decision." I did. But you know what? I make a decision every day.
Mhm.
And sometimes in that decision, I am in the bed, you know, all day, or I'm not able to overcome in that moment. But for the most part, when I make the decision to live, God gives me wind in my back, and I find myself, being able to have joy.
Yeah, that is so good. And that, resonates with me because this for whatever reason, this past Christmas season was hard. Like, it was
Mhm.
tough, and during my prayer time, even though I was still going through it, I was like, "God, I don't want this, take it." I remember just
Wow.
saying, like, tears running down my face, "God, take this." And
Mm.
one day, something just clicked. And I had been on autopilot for months, and a lot of people didn't know, showing up, podcasting, coming to church, but a part of me was on autopilot. But one day, a couple months ago, something clicked, and I found myself moving differently, showing up differently, and realizing it was residue. I had still been grieving some things, and I
Mm.
remember during the pandemic, and it was a small Zoom group. It was myself, Dr. Carrie Turner was facilitating, and it was maybe 15 of us. It was really small, and
Mhm.
she was talking about some things she had been going through, being very transparent, and she was like, "You're grieving," and she was like, "It's not that you're grieving somebody had died, but you're grieving missed opportunities, you're grieving people that are still alive." And when she said that, it put to
Mhm.
language to what I had been feeling, and I was like, "That's grief," and it
Mhm.
was whooping my tail. But at some point, it was like, "God, I'm tired of this, you know, take it." And he just started, that process, and even now, when I feel that, that little feeling, I'm like, "No, God, take this too." And, our pastor, he talks about residue,
Yes.
and it was just
Yes.
a residue of some things, of just that ache. And I was watching Prophetess Calloway today, and she did a message on "Healed So You Can Live." And she's
Mm.
gonna drop that mail off.
Yes.
And she
Yes.
said
Yes. Yes.
she dropped
Yes.
off the mail, and I was,
Yes.
like, going through it like, but you have to read the mail. And when it really sat with me, and she was pointing out that it's not that what you went through was hard, or that it didn't happen, but she was like, "It doesn't matter." And she said, "It doesn't matter, that fact that," not dismissing what happened, but it doesn't matter in terms of, it doesn't change God's ending for you.
That's right. That's right.
I was like,
That's good.
"Okay," and she was like, and she started, going down the list. She said, "But at the end, it doesn't change God's purpose for your life. It doesn't change His assignment for your life. It doesn't change the oil or the call of the oil on your life.
Mm.
Even if they don't really apologize, if you don't get that phone call, the conversation, guess what? It doesn't matter, because your end has already been destined by God."
That's good. Eh, that's really good. And this is one thing that you made me think about, and I'm gonna say something that's probably gonna be hard for people,
Let's
and
do
that's
it.
okay. That's okay. We're
We
here,
don't
aren't we?
care.
Um, Sometimes we idolize grief.
Grief is an idol,
It's an
and it's gotta
idol.
be torn down.
We have built up movements around it. And hear me, I teach on grief, I grieve, I talk about grief. I have no problem because I feel like it is an area where people need to be healed. And, somebody told me one time, they were like, I think you're just graced, to lose people and to grieve and to still do whatever. And I'm like, I don't want that. Okay. Who signed me up for that?
I'm
I don't
not one
want
of the
that.
strongest soul, that what is that? He gives his strongest battles to this whatever.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
didn't
yeah.
enlist for that army.
I'm like, I did
Yeah,
not enlist, okay?
yeah.
But but what I will say though to that to the to the point that we're making, I do believe that instead of understanding that these are life cycles, and the reality is many are the afflictions of the righteous, right? Man born of a woman is few days and full of trouble. That's what Job said. We forget those scriptures. If we suffer with him, we'll reign with him. We forget those scriptures where God prepares us that life is difficult and part of life is loss. But what happens is we get stuck in the grief, and then the grief becomes the lens by which we see life and we do life. And sometimes we wear it as a badge of honor. So you're being taught to heal, and you're being asked to do certain things. But I'm grieving, right? I get it. I've lost my mother. I lost both my brothers. I lost my both my brothers and my husband in 2 years. 2 years. I lost 3 cousins in one day from a drug overdose, right? I eulogize my grandmother, I eulogize my brother, I eulogize my cousin 4 months earlier, and I just eulogized another cousin, 40 years old. I know grief, I know loss, and I am not saying that it doesn't hurt. It does. To be honest, for me, what I have to fight is not hurt, but being numb. It's like, okay, another person passed away. Not some peripheral person. I'm talking about somebody close. Having said that, though, God is still greater. Outside of community, outside of, medication if you need it for mental health purposes, outside of these other things that we've talked about, God is still greater. But we have to know how to get to him. We have to know how to sup with him, right? Behold, I stand at the door and knock. That's what God is doing. And so when we talk about this idea of experiencing and dealing with grief, that choice says, God, I can't do this on my own, but I know you can. I'm not going to make it an idol. It's not bigger than God. So part of what you hear me saying or see me doing, and the hand of God is on me. I know that he's on my family. He told me he would take care of us, and he's doing just that. But I have been determined that grief was not going to be bigger than the God that I serve. It is part of life. It's hard. It's lonely. That's a whole other podcast. It's sad, but it's not the only part of my story. In fact, it's a small part of my story.
Yes, and two more things because I really want to get into your amazing book, which I have pre-ordered, by the way, and I do want my autograph copy, ma'am.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
Even in this, before we turn the corner,
Yep.
do you ever wonder, like, how will God use this later? Because you do minister to different demographics, but you have a niche for women. And so
Mhm,
now this is another thing that you can meet someone at and say, I've
mhm.
been there, I've gone through there, I've been through it, I'm still there, I get it.
Yes.
But God still has something for you on the side of this, or even able to discern another nuance of grief that you couldn't pick up. It's like if you've ever smelt a dead body before, it's just something you never forget. So if you
Yeah.
smell it, it's one of those things. And so do you sometimes wonder, like, how will God use this later for his glory in the end of all this, or the why of it all?
Absolutely. And please hear me, if you're watching and you're in the middle of grief, somebody just passed away, or maybe they passed away 20 years ago. Don't hear me say in a callous way, like, get over it. That is not my message. People who follow me, that is not my message at all. Um, I'm not saying get over it, but what I am saying is you can heal from it. You can heal through it. There is still a through, right? I'm in the middle of my through still. The short answer to your question is yes. I have wondered why, and I'll keep this short, but this is something that I keep in the back of my mind all the time. My biggest area of grief was when my mom passed away in 2017. And I won't get into everything about that, but a TED talk came out of it, just a whole bunch of different things. Because one thing that God does do through me, Camille, is when I experience something, it does become a place of ministry for me. So I started studying grief and, all the things. And I believe people were blessed by the TED talk and all of that. But I remember when my younger brother passed away in 2022. Somebody that I know that I hadn't spoken to in years and years and years prophesied to me and was like, God is going to use this experience for his good. Another person, again, someone that I know, but I don't talk to all the time and don't know my family, confirmed that, right? And what I've seen since then, um, I certainly didn't know my husband was going to die, and I didn't know my other brother was going to die. Um, but I've seen God, Camille. So I do a lot of different things, but I'm a keynote speaker in secular spaces as well as a preacher. So I remember I was speaking at a conference for counselors. This was during the summer. They were about to go back to school, and I was kind of like a motivational speaker for their summer conference. And I don't even remember the point that I was making, but I was talking about the fact that my mom had passed away. And whatever point that I was sharing, it was relevant to them. I was talking about them having self-care, taking care of themselves. People talked about the content that was specific to them, the counseling piece of it. But I had people coming up to me because I had ministered to them because they had just lost a grandmother or they had just lost a person, right? And so my point in saying that is, I know that God is using this part of the story to help other people, whether it's through, coaching. I mean, I all the time I talk to people. I've talked to people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I saw your TED Talk." People I don't even know or didn't even know that they knew that I'd done a TED Talk. And it wasn't because I had done a TED Talk. It was because I was being transparent about my grief journey. So, do I wish I could have just studied and given a lecture? Yes.
Like, Jesus, I didn't ask for this OJT.
Like, can I just, let me just study it and give the lecture? But no, there is something special, to your point, when you actually go through it. And I'll be very honest, and I just shared this with God the other day. I am healing, but I don't know if I'll ever get over Lawrence's passing. I just don't know. It's only a year and a half into it. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to go on with life and live and have happiness. But he was my life partner for 25 years in every aspect of my life. I don't ever want to not remember that or not have something that draws me to want to say his name or share a memory, right? I want that to be a part of my life. But I'm determined for myself, for my kids, for my purpose to live. And so I'll say lastly, that's why it's a both and, right? I can express and be aware of the depth and the weight of his absence while also feel and experience the weight of the rest of God's life for me.
Awesome. Wow. Like, you have really been so transparent and poured out, and just thank you for trusting me with this exclusive. Um,
Yes.
Kind of peek behind the curtain because you could have done it on larger spaces, but the fact that you see value in this space and to share it here, I just really want to say thank you for doing that.
Well,
And um, I think I've purchased, like, all your books, and so you have another one coming out. So, first of all, what's the name of your book? What's the premise of your book? And where can people buy it? Because 'Cause I'm so excited when my copy comes in the summer because 'cause I'm gonna add it to the shelf with the other one.
absolutely. So it's called Lost and Found: My Journey Back to Joy and Myself. And the whole premise of the book is what we've been talking about. And thank you for pre-ordering it. A number of people have, and I'll talk about how to get it in just a moment. But it really is kind of my through, right? Because people they see the social media version, right? I'm not on there. Sometimes I may have a tear or two, but they see me moving through it. And I want that. I want to be there are people that I aspire to, right? That as I see them, I'm like, okay, I can do it. I am so grateful, Camille, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, whether it's loss or there's some other aspect of my life where people like, I see that I can do it, or there's hope, or I can attain, or I love that. But there are those experiences, some of which I've revealed a little bit of here tonight, that I haven't talked about, but will be in the book, right? Um, I dealt a lot with my kids last year in 2025. I don't talk about it, and I'm not going to divulge their story. That's their testimony. But I will say that all three of us lived in trauma. I have a son, I have a daughter. It was traumatic for all of us. So, how do you, as a woman whose husband dies immediately, you lose half your income, you lose your health insurance, right? You lose the person who helps you co-parent, and I mean super present, your business partner, your ministry partner, the person that you literally went from basically your teenage years to your adult years with, how do you not just bounce back? Because ain't no bouncing. It's literally a pathway. It is a walking through. How do you not just in losing half your income, but you now are the person who's making all the decisions. You've got to figure out all the business, parts of it. You have to figure out where all the bill stuff. You're going through probate, right? Because you're dealing with his and her property, this, that, and the other. Like, it is a journey. But what I want people to know is when you follow God on his path, the journey can have a great destination. As much as there's been pain, I've discovered so much strength in myself that I didn't realize. I knew I had it, but then when you see it, you're like, okay, okay, girl, okay. I've learned lessons. I've developed a strength in identity. As I've been looking through this, I've realized that God's got a bigger plan. And to be honest, I'll say this last thing and then we can talk more. But I had some guilt, some survivor's guilt. Like, why did this happen? And why do I now get to go on and live this great life? And some of these questions we'll never know the answer to. But I just have to keep going until that's part of the journey as well. How do I rediscover purpose? How do I rediscover joy? This is my real last thing.
No, it's like church. You won't keep closing. Go ahead.
This is my third close.
Like, no, preach on.
People have seen somewhat of a difference, as you said, the joy, the this, the that, maybe the way I look, whatever. When you see somebody when you see somebody die, let's just the stark reality. For many of us, for me included, it makes you want to live. And part of what I did decide, and this journey is a part of that, is life is short. We don't know when our last days are. So why not live it fully in joy? And that's what I've been discovering. Going to new places, doing new things, doing things on my own.
Taking cruises
And carrying on. Actually, and I took one in December and then one in February.
Yes. As our friends say, we're going to shenan and then shenan again.
And then shenan again. And I'm planning some other shenanigans and some shenanigans for the remainder of this year. But just yeah. So the book really chronicles the challenging things, but then also the pathway to how we get back to ourselves.
Absolutely, that's beautiful. And where can we find this amazing pre-order? I have mine, but people listening, watching, do you have yours?
Thank you for the question. So it's coming out in the summer, as Camille said. I'm super excited. You can go to my website. So you'll go to www.matisawilbon.com. And they're going to be coming out soon. And let me just say this, because Camille referenced this earlier, and I think it's so important. When we think about loss and grief, we typically only think about death, but there are so many things that we grieve. Camille referenced, things that she was grieving. Sometimes we grieve divorce, we grieve a job loss, a job shift. There's so much happening in the world today. People are losing their jobs. They're worried about AI. There's grief that comes from any shift in structure, any shift in society. So don't just think that this book is only for someone who's lost a spouse or lost a loved one. It is loss in general. It's grief in general. But if you go to that website, you can place your pre-order today, and the books will be coming out soon.
Thank you so much for ordering. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And with that being said, just some final thoughts. Just praying for you that you continue to soar and rise, and your family is covered in grace, and even in those moments behind the doors, where people don't see you, that you are comforted and find peace and strength. And even in the answers that are not the questions that are not answered, that um you're just like, okay, you know, and as our elders used to say, you'll understand it better by and by.
That's right.
Um and just to know that you have community, you know, I may not be in your bullseye, but a part of, that community that thinks about you, prays for you. And we just want to see you um soar and continue to do well. And y'all, she tears us up because when she's on the docket and we see the glasses, we like, oh yeah,
That is so funny to me. That's so like it was so unintentional at first, but it's almost like I kind of gotta wear them now.
it's like Clark Kent when he go in the booth, and so
Yep.
like Clarnisha.
Clarnisha, that's it.
But we just continue to just lift you up, and you have Aaron and her that held up Moses' arms, and you have a lot of people virtually and in person holding you up, and not just you but your family as well. And so we're just rooting for you and we're pushing you, and in those moments, even if don't have everything to say and you text me, you be like, girl, I'd be like, okay, so
Yeah.
we got your back and we don't play about you, okay? So we don't
Oh.
play about you.
Well, thank you so much. I feel it. I know it. And I'm so grateful. I can't I hope people can feel my heart through this. I wouldn't be able to make it without God, but I certainly know that my community, God through my community is a huge part of that. So thank you all who pray for me, lift me up, encourage me. Thank you, Camille. Thank you for this platform. I love seeing what God is doing through you. Um, I don't know that I remember when you first started. It seemed like you first started when we met, or was it a little bit after that?
I was started before then, but the
Before then.
pandemic pushed me to go live because we
Okay.
were all in here. So
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I've just seen the growth from the time that I've seen you and whenever you're and the whole the technology pieces of it that you do now. I'm like, that girl is bad. Okay.
that is
That
all
girl.
God. That is all God.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. That is all God because when he nudged me into this space, I had my own lash brand, Kamiki Mink Lashes, and I
That's
was
right.
doing makeup and lashes with the Glam Squad, and we will go to the Stella Awards and do makeup and lashes with the group. And so
Wow.
I was in California. I'm still in the Navy at the time, sitting at my desk, and that's when God told me to come into the space, and I'm like, nuh like, I don't know. And so he was like, "Do this." And so, we keep the little bottles of oil around. And
Wow.
so I left on my lunch break, and I was living on base at the time, and I went back to my space, and I anointed myself, and I was like, "Well, Lord, if this is what you want me to do, I need you to open up my intelligence to understand this because I don't have a tech background. I know nothing about design, nothing." And I was like, "If this is really what you want me to do, I need you to literally anoint my hands and my mind to even understand how." I didn't even know how to put together anything, like, just dumbfounded because my space again was makeup and lashes and just not like, just ignorant to all of it,
Mhm.
and within
Mhm.
1 hour, he guided me on how to design my first podcast cover, started guiding me to links on Google and YouTube University, was graduating all the time, and put it together and the name and everything, and getting my first episode out there and fumbling through it, and he was literally he was literally guiding me. I can't explain it. And so to go to what it is now, and even in my prayer, I was like, Lord, show me, guide me, connect me to people that know about information and technology because I don't know. And he started literally placing people around me that this is their thing, and they started pouring into me, and they would not charge me, and they're, "Oh, no, no," just, like, literally blessing me, and that's where my first ebook, How to Start a Podcast for Less than $100 came about, because I'm like, "God, I don't have money for this. I'm on a military paycheck," which is not a lot, and
Mhm.
so he just really did that and not realizing it would bloom into this, not just for me, but for other people,
Mhm.
um, and now kind of understanding why he has me not have the full picture, but I'm just like, okay, I found my rhythm in it, and now he's pushing me to do more. And I'm like, you've already asked me to start talking, and I don't like that. And now you have me on camera, and I don't like that. And he's just like you remember Mr. Brown on Tyler Perry? He's like, I teeter-totter.
Yeah.
And he just pushed me in. That's where it was. And he just pushed me, and I was like, ah! So like we're here now.
That is
And
hilarious.
so I'm thankful because it's opened the space to be a bridge between the secular world and the church, because everybody's not going to come, they're not going to come in within the walls. And so I feel like I'm too worldly for the church and too churchy for the world, but I'm learning to be comfortable with me, and that's okay. And that I'm not for everybody, but I'm for those he's calling me to, and that's where I'm at. And so to have you here where you are that chick in the world of education and in corporate spaces, because we're bilingual, we speak Black in boardroom, and so
That's right.
to have you
That's right. Black in boardroom. I like
yes.
that.
So and then we do those things, and we're taught that we're both and so I continue just to see what you do next and where you go next. And just again, like I said before, just a thank you for trusting me with your space. And just one more thing before we wrap up.
Before we wrap up, what are your key takeaways from our conversation, and where can our listeners find you on social media?
Love it. So I would just say, for somebody who is grieving, it can get better. I know it's difficult. For someone who is trying to get through a life transition, maybe it's not grief, there is another side. Get the resources that you need, the tools, whether it's community, whether you need some extra support in other ways, a therapist, certainly the Lord, prayer. Use all of those things, because God is not only going to take you through, but this is the message that I want to make sure we understand. God can strengthen you in it. What you see in my life is just God strengthening me. You don't see the resistance. Wait a minute, that's a word. That's a download. When you go to the gym, right, you see people lifting, and you don't always see the resistance, but you get to see the result. Sometimes as people are going, you don't see that resistance because we don't show it on social media, but there is no strength without resistance. So ask the Lord to renew your mind and shift it differently. God, I'm going through this. It's difficult. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. Be honest and transparent with him. But through that resistance, God is going to strengthen you. You can connect with me on Facebook, Matisa Olinger Wilbon, Olinger Wilbon. Both TikTok and Instagram. I think it's just Matisa Wilbon. And then, of course, my website is matisawilbon.com. So if you know my name, you should be able to find me.
Absolutely. And y'all go grab and pre-order her book. Do that. So,
yes, do that.
Yes. Well, with that being said, I hope that everyone got something from this conversation. I'm Camille Essick. I'm host of the SpeakHer Podcast, the podcast where innovators and creators connect. Be sure to follow me across all streaming platforms. We are this close to hitting our next milestone of, I think it's 16,000, whatever the number is. I'll have to check and post it. But we are climbing up there with the downloads. I'm super excited about that. And be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And y'all be blessed. Be safe this weekend. Happy Resurrection weekend and Holy Week. Y'all be blessed. Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. What a conversation. I hope you got something from tonight's episode. If you missed tonight's convo, no worries. Just catch the replay on YouTube and be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Keep the SpeakHer Podcast ad-free. Scan the QR code and buy me a coffee. Your support keeps us ad-free as we continue to bring you conversations impacting the community and the culture.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the SpeakHer Podcast. Be sure to follow Camille on Instagram at camille.essick, Facebook at the SpeakHer Podcast, or www.camilleessick.com. SpeakHer.com.
Listen, love the Speak Podcast. The feeling when you're here. There's a vibe in your ear.